At first, there was a teaser, then there was another teaser, and a few teasers later we have 2 more teasers with still no sign of a full-length trailer. Why are they stalling, and when will we get a proper look at the TV series that is just around the corner now? Some of you may be asking these questions and some may be having doubts. I don't blame you, although I'm pretty hyped myself. But with the little information and new footage we have on these 2 teasers, I'll try to set the scene as best I can in hopes of igniting your enthusiasm for Alien Earth.
Is this going to be a stand-up fight, sir, or another bug hunt?
A what?
A xenomorph.
It's a bug hunt.
Well, now we finally have solid confirmation and evidence that those future bug hunts were more than just chest thumping and tough talk. Not that I ever doubted the integrity and bravery of Private Hudson. However, I feel like the USCSS Marines might have potentially downplayed the danger and hostility of these nightmarish critters ever so slightly, as these things creep me out. And I'm someone who turns into a demented shadow boxer, bobbing and weaving if I see a wasp near me. Anyhow, we are about the 5th teaser in for Alien Earth. We've yet to see Earth so far, but we are still on board the Maginot, a Weyland-Yutani science and exploration vessel, which has been studying life in the darkest regions of frontier space. The narration reveals some of the mystery behind what is being stored in these containers, albeit lacking in the details. Oh, and by the way, I find it slightly symbolic that these specimen containers have glass in the colour of the fossilised tree resin amber. It kind of implies that we are dealing with life forms that are very ancient in origin and may not have needed to evolve too much because of their predatory perfection and stable planetary environments, which are very analogous to crocodiles or certain sharks on Earth, as they also haven't needed to adapt drastically. The same could be said about the Xenomorph if we are to believe the show's creator, Noah Hawley, who spoke of exploring an evolutionary origin for this perfect specimen. Sorry David, you weren't the first and won't be the last, unless the show acknowledges that David's creation was the first biomechanical variation of the species. But here is where the waters become muddied, leaving us once again with many more questions, which is pretty good marketing when you think about it, even if they are starting to redefine the word tease by this point. Before this teaser, there was much debate about whether this escaped specimen was a facehugger, an unknown alien bug, or even a facehugger grappling with a bug. However, the narrator specifies that these 5 lifeforms are distinctly separate species from one another with their own unique and deadly qualities.
My mommy always said there were no monsters, no real ones, but there are.
Yes, monster. Sorry Newt, you did find out the hard way, didn't you? We have no idea if these specimens have been collected from various star systems or simply all from the same planet. We have to assume that one of these containers houses a life cycle stage 1 variation of the xenomorph, the egg, otherwise referred to as an ovomorph. While still in containment, we know that it develops into a stage 2 phase, the facehugger, because of what is shown in the accompanying teaser titled Gestation Complete. And what a magnificent piece of special effects, by the way. The VFX team responsible have contributed something quite exceptional for Alien fans with this highly detailed and intricate time-lapse of some variation of a facehugger growing inside its pod. The imagery is highly reminiscent of those early shots in Prometheus that depicted the rapid decline of cellular activity of the engineer's body broken down after consuming the much-loved black goo. The sheer level of visceral and pulsating detail on display really evokes some hauntingly existential thoughts about the meaning of life and the complexity of microscopic biology. Or is that just me? I don't know. Personally, after watching a series of podcasts recently, I've started to believe that DNA is a pre-written code that was inserted into our bubble of existence we call a universe in order to interact with the building blocks of life we have in abundance, by whoever or whatever created it. Still, maybe that's a video for another time. But staying on track, what opens up some potentially new possibilities is that none of these creatures, especially the newly birthed specimen seen here, look anything like what has come before in previous films. There are similarities, of course. There do appear to be tri-jointed digits on either side like the fingers of the facehugger. And there's enough evidence of a proboscis, which is the flexible long appendage that the facehugger uses to insert an embryo into the host's body. Other than that, nothing else is overtly comparable. The body is enormous, mimicking that of an insect rather than the flat surface containing dual filtering sacs on either side, which are used to ensure environmental control over the host, typically seen on the facehuggers we know all too well and like to admire from a distance. I'd also mention that the egg sac has an entirely different design to the almost 1 meter high, leathery ovoid with its 4 petal-like lips at the top. What we see here is more akin to the developing cocoon we witnessed in Alien Romulus, if truth be told. Therefore, the broader question regarding Origin going into this show is what they intend to establish as canon. The first films gave us pure gold in terms of story and cinematic shock, and were rightfully shrouded in cosmic existential mystery. The prequels tried to explain some of that wonder but only succeeded in further confusing the issue, with 2 conflicting films that were never concluded. They certainly failed to unite fans with David's story arc and the impact he was suggested to have on the Xenomorph structure and life cycle, which included a mechanical aspect to their natural appearance. I also felt the black goo first seen in Prometheus was mainly written for plot convenience, and its detrimental effect on the Xenomorph's mysterious origins was not properly considered or even fully respected by the film's writers. One possibility this show might explore is the discovery of a homeworld, where this perfect organism was allowed to develop and evolve. The other narrative is a fertile world that this specimen may have ravaged as it multiplied and consumed much of the life in its path, decimating the planet's ecosystem, which implies that somebody would have introduced the organism to a thriving biosphere. This may explain why the early stage Xeno birthed inside its container looks unconventional. As we know, they borrow from the host genome during the gestation period. I prefer the latter because this theory strengthens the idea that the space jockey was possibly involved. The long-dead towering giant, vastly taller than the engineers, found fused into the navigation chair inside the derelict, discovered on LV-426, just 2 years after this TV series takes place, remember? Or maybe the engineers were responsible. Many will say, wait a minute, what about those humanoid albinos in the prequels? Were they not the creators, and was not the size of the fossilized being in Alien retconned to make way for Ridley Scott's newer design? Well, the answer is who knows. Currently, it's a convoluted mess left wide open until he manages to conclude his trilogy. Even then, will it be worth waiting for? My understanding and preference is that the space jockey belonged to an ancient godlike race that mastered the deepest knowledge of both organisms and materials. From this vast wisdom they forged a symbiotic bond between biology and machinery, fusing 2 worlds into one, and potentially unlocking immortality and boundless creation as a result. The Xenomorph, perhaps their most prized, feared, or even worshipped creation, stands as a direct expression of their devotion to the seamless integration of flesh and machine. That's how I like to make sense of their existence. It is my sincerest wish that the show explores these themes in a manner that retains the curiosity of this enigma right here, whilst also providing some eye-opening new revelations. We end this teaser with a couple more monitor feeds which suggest that the ship has either many specimens on board, or has in its time been able to archive a multitude of varying species. This intrigued me because if you look at the metrics presented on screen for specimen 37, the clearance is high and it's absolutely massive. I wonder if this refers to the container size and weight. If not, whatever this specimen is, it has to be fully matured, and it's big. Not tall enough to be a queen, but even so, how would this crew capture such a thing? I hope we get to see a glimpse of their visit to one of these worlds, something comparable to when 3 of the Nostromo's crew set down on Acheron to investigate the derelict signal. Alternatively, one strong possibility is that the facehugger variant escaped days before this emergency message, warning DNA unknown. In every instance, the chestburster will seek an uninhabited space to develop unmolested. Therefore, I wonder if a crew member was killed and the hatching Xeno has matured, and suddenly been detected by the ship's bioscanner. Either that, or something from an enormous container not seen in any trailer has escaped and alerted Mother. Whatever it is, I find it odd that the computer says new species detected, when surely samples and scans would have already been analysed by the science personnel. Surely it can only mean it has developed into the next life cycle stage, right? And it is humongous. Okay, that's all I have for now, and I think when we finally do get a full-length trailer, I'm probably going to have to compartmentalise my breakdown into a few separate videos, as I tend to pursue a train of thought and always end up down the rabbit hole with these ideas. Hopefully the trailer will inspire us after all of these marketing teasers, and don't forget to share your thoughts or suggest anything that I might have missed down below in the comments. Take care my friends, Dude signing off.